I stared at the stack of legal papers on the mahogany table in our family's sprawling Chicago mansion, my heart pounding with rage as I realized my stepsister Isla had positioned herself to claim the lion's share of Dad's fortune. How could she do this to me after all those years of pretending to be the perfect blended family member? Especially now that I was fighting to live openly with the woman I loved, Mariah? The lawyer had just left, leaving behind the cold reality of the will. Dad had passed 6 months ago from a sudden heart attack, leaving behind a multi-million-dollar real estate empire, and this massive home that had been in the family for generations. I, Harper Thompson, was supposed to be the primary heir as his only biological child. But the documents showed Isla, his stepdaughter from his second marriage to my stepmom Linda, was listed as co-beneficiary with clauses that gave her control over several key properties if I didn't meet certain family obligations. What obligations? It smelled like a setup. Isla had always been the golden child in Linda's eyes, the one who stayed close to Dad, helping with the business while I pursued my career in marketing in New York. But now, with Dad gone, it seemed like she was ready to take it all. I paced the empty hallway, my mind racing through every conversation we'd had since the funeral. Isla had been too calm, too helpful, offering to handle the paperwork while I grieved. Now I saw it for what it was, a calculated move. The family business, Thompson Properties, was worth over $20 million, and the clauses hinted at moral clauses that could strip me of everything if my lifestyle didn't align with Dad's old-school values. Linda had already started dropping hints about me settling down with some guy from her country club. They didn't know about Mariah yet, but the pressure was building like a storm. I slipped into the study and pulled out my phone, dialing Mariah's number with shaking hands. She picked up on the second ring, her voice warm and steady like always. "Harper, you sound wrecked. What happened with the lawyer?" I told her everything, the words tumbling out in a rush. "Isla's trying to steal it all. The will ties my share to staying in line with family expectations. If I push for us to get married, I could lose the house, the company shares, everything Dad left me." Mariah sighed on the other end, but I could hear the steel in her tone. "Then fight it. We knew this wouldn't be easy. But don't let fear make you doubt the people around you." Easy for her to say. She taught history at a public school in the suburbs, her life stable and her own family supportive in their quiet way. Mine was a minefield of expectations and judgments. That night I couldn't sleep. I lay in the guest room of the mansion that might not be mine much longer, replaying the day Dad died. He'd been proud of me in his own gruff way, but he'd never known the truth about who I really loved. The secrecy had been my shield, but now it felt like a cage. By morning, I decided to confront Isla directly. She was in the kitchen, pouring coffee like nothing had changed, her blonde hair pulled back neatly and her blue eyes sharp as ever. "Harper, the will is what Dad wanted," she said before I could even speak. "I'm not stealing anything. It's to protect the family business from outsiders." "Protect? By giving you veto power over my decisions?" I saw the clauses, Isla. "Family values. That's code for keeping me straight and single." Her expression didn't waver, but something flickered behind her eyes, a hesitation that made me pause. "You don't understand the pressure Dad was under from the board and the relatives. There are things you don't know about how the will was drafted." I slammed my mug down. "Then explain it. Or admit you're after the money." She set her cup aside and looked at me squarely. "I can't explain everything yet. But I'm not the enemy here." Her words hung in the air, but I didn't believe them. Not with the inheritance slipping away and my future with Mariah on the line. The price of keeping my love secret was already too high, and now it felt like I was paying it twice over. By the end of the week, Linda had arranged a family dinner, inviting cousins and her church friends, all while pushing me toward a blind date with some finance guy named Greg. I sat through it with a forced smile, my mind on Mariah waiting for me at her apartment across town. Every laugh from the table felt like a knife, reminding me that coming out could cost me everything. And through it all, Isla watched silently, her support nowhere in sight. I was alone in this fight, or so I thought. The family dinner dragged on for hours, the clink of silverware masking the tension that crackled between us all. Linda kept steering the conversation toward my future, praising Greg's stable job, and hinting that a good marriage would secure my place in the company. "Harper, your father always wanted you settled," she said, her voice sweet but edged with warning. I nodded politely, but inside I was screaming. Settled with a man who wasn't Mariah? The very idea felt like betrayal, not just to her but to myself. After the guests left, I slipped out to the garden and called Mariah again. I can't keep pretending, I whispered into the phone. The pressure is crushing me. If I fight for us, Isla's clauses could take it all. Mariah's response was firm. Then maybe it's time to stop hiding. We deserve to build a life without their rules. Her words gave me courage, but they also terrified me. I drove to her apartment that night, the Chicago skyline blurring past as I wrestled with the choice. Love or legacy? The drive felt endless, each mile a reminder of the price I'd pay either way. When I arrived, Mariah pulled me into a tight hug, her dark curls brushing my cheek. We sat on her couch for hours, talking through every scenario. She reminded me of how we'd met 3 years ago at a marketing conference. The instant spark that turned into stolen weekends and whispered promises. Your dad built that empire for you, not for them to control it, she said. But the next morning, reality hit harder. I returned to the mansion to find Isla in Dad's old office, poring over financial statements. I couldn't resist sneaking a glance at her laptop when she stepped out. What I saw made my stomach drop. Transfers to accounts in her name, meetings scheduled with the family lawyer. It looked like she was siphoning assets before the probate finalized. Rage boiled up again. I waited for her return and confronted her right there. I saw the transfers, Isla. You're not protecting anything. You're robbing me blind. She closed the laptop slowly, her face unreadable. Harper, you have no idea what I'm doing. Those moves are to safeguard your share, not take it. I laughed bitterly. Save the lies. If you really cared, you'd back me when I tell the family about Mariah. Her eyes narrowed, but she said nothing more, just left the room. The silence felt heavier than any accusation. Over the next days, the pressure mounted. Linda found out about a vague social media post from a cousin hinting at my close friendship with Mariah. She cornered me in the kitchen, her voice low and venomous. If this is what I think it is, you'll lose more than money. The board will vote you out. I felt the walls closing in. That evening I met Mariah at a quiet cafe. Our hands brushing under the table like teenagers. I might have to choose, I admitted, tears stinging my eyes. The inheritance or us. She squeezed my hand. No one should make you choose. But if they do, I won't blame you for picking stability. Her understanding only made the guilt worse. I was sacrificing our future for a fortune that Isla seemed determined to control. By week's end, I'd hired my own lawyer to challenge the will, but the bills were piling up and the family was circling. Isla stayed quiet, watching from the sidelines, her every action feeding my suspicion. The betrayal cut deep, and the moral weight of my decisions pressed harder. Was love worth losing millions? Or was I the one destroying everything Dad left behind? The lawyer's office downtown felt like a battlefield, the air thick with legal jargon and unspoken accusations. I sat across from my new attorney, Mr. Reynolds, while Isla unexpectedly showed up, claiming she wanted to clarify the will. Harper, these clauses aren't traps, she insisted, sliding a copy across the table. They're safeguards Dad added after he learned about certain risks to the company. Risks? Like my relationship? I pushed back hard. Don't play innocent. You've been moving money and now you're here to twist the knife. Mr. Reynolds cleared his throat, but Isla leaned in, her voice steady. If you keep fighting this publicly, the board will freeze everything. Think about what that means for you and everyone involved. The way she paused on everyone sent a chill down my spine. Did she know about Mariah? I stormed out after the meeting, my mind spinning with doubt. Maybe she was bluffing, or maybe she was one step ahead. That night, I drove to Mariah's again, the city lights mocking my confusion. She's gaslighting me. I told her over takeout. Every move looks like theft, but she acts like she's helping. Mariah listened patiently, then said the words that cracked my resolve. What if she's not the villain? What if the real pressure is coming from Linda and the rest? I didn't want to hear it. The betrayal felt too personal. The following weekend brought a family summit at the mansion. Linda had gathered the cousins and the company board for a unity meeting. I arrived ready for war, Mariah waiting in the car outside as backup. Linda wasted no time. Harper, your father expected you to carry on the family name properly. These rumors about your lifestyle, they're hurting the business. The room went silent as all eyes turned to me. I could feel the judgment like heat from a fire. My lifestyle? You mean loving someone who isn't a man? The words slipped out before I could stop them. Gasps rippled around the table. Isla sat quietly at the end, her expression unreadable. Linda's face turned red. If you pursue this, you'll forfeit your share. The will allows it. I looked straight at Isla. And you'd love that, wouldn't you? Stealing it all under the guise of family duty. She didn't flinch. I'm trying to keep you from losing it all, Harper. But you have to trust the process. Trust? After everything I'd seen? The meeting ended in chaos, with cousins whispering and board members shaking their heads. I left feeling raw, the moral dilemma tearing me apart. Choosing Mariah meant financial ruin and family exile. Conforming meant losing my soul. Back in the car, Mariah held me as I cried. We can walk away from the money, she whispered. But I won't let them take you from me. Her strength only highlighted my weakness. I was the one who had to decide the price. Days blurred into arguments and sleepless nights. I dug deeper into the finances, finding emails where Isla had advised Dad on the clauses. It looked damning. Yet when I confronted her privately in the garden, she said something that lodged in my mind. The board is homophobic, Harper. Dad knew it. He wrote those protections for a reason. Was she admitting the family prejudice? Or manipulating me again? The tension built like a tightening rope. I started questioning my own judgment. Had I been so blinded by suspicion that I missed Isla's true intent? The cost of my doubt was mounting. Strained calls with Mariah, lost sleep, and a growing fear that I'd destroy the very legacy I was fighting to keep. The family dinner fallout spread like wildfire, with Linda threatening to cut me off completely. In that moment, I realized the real conflict wasn't just money. It was whether I could afford to trust anyone, even the stepsister I'd labeled a thief. The revelation hit me like a freight train during a late-night stakeout I never planned. I'd followed Isla to a downtown law firm after seeing another suspicious calendar entry on her phone. Hiding in the lobby shadows, I watched through the glass as she met not with a corporate shark, but with a specialist in estate law who specialized in protecting LGBTQ heirs. My stomach twisted. Was this part of her scheme or something else? I waited until she left and slipped inside, pretending to be a client. The receptionist confirmed it. Isla had been consulting on ways to rewrite clauses without losing the estate's value. My suspicion cracked wide open. Back home, I couldn't confront her immediately. Instead, I called Mariah from the mansion's balcony. I think I might have been wrong about Isla. She's doing something behind the scenes. Mariah's relief was palpable. See? Not everyone is against us. But doubt lingered. The next morning, Linda ambushed me in the breakfast room. That little stunt at dinner has the board talking. Sign the papers to settle down, or watch your inheritance vanish. Her ultimatum was clear. Marry a man or lose it all. I felt the walls of the family legacy closing in, the moral weight crushing my chest. Was stability worth erasing who I was? Isla found me in Dad's study later that day. Her usual poise softened. I know you saw me at the firm, she said quietly. I'm not stealing. I'm buying time so you can marry Mariah without the board stripping you bare. The words hung between us, a bridge I wasn't ready to cross. Why would you do that? You've always been Linda's favorite. Isla sighed, sitting across from me. Because Dad asked me to protect you. He suspected your secret before he died. He couldn't say it outright, but he changed the will to give me leverage against the bigots on the board. Tears pricked my eyes. The betrayal I'd built in my head started to crumble. But the price was still real. Linda had already frozen some accounts, and cousins were spreading rumors that threatened Mariah's job. I met Mariah at a park that afternoon, the autumn leaves crunching under our feet. Isla's on our side, I told her, the confession feeling surreal. We walked hand in hand, the first time in public, the fear mixing with fragile hope. Yet the confrontation with Linda came that evening. You're choosing that woman over your family? She spat. Then you'll pay. The argument escalated into shouts about legacy and sin, each word carving deeper wounds. Isla stood in the doorway, silent but present, her support a quiet anchor. The days that followed were a whirlwind of legal calls and emotional reckonings. I realized I'd projected my fears onto Isla, letting prejudice and grief blind me. The moral dilemma shifted. Now it was about forgiveness and fighting together. Mariah and I talked long into the nights about the future, weighing the lost family ties against the life we could build. The cost was mounting, with Linda threatening lawsuits and the company stock dipping. But for the first time I felt less alone. Isla's actions had awakened something in me, a willingness to risk everything for truth. The family fracture was widening, and I knew the biggest test was still coming. Would I have the strength to stand when the final blow landed? The family summit turned into a battlefield when Linda called everyone back to the mansion for a final vote on the estate. The living room filled with relatives, board members, and lawyers, the air electric with judgment. I stood beside Mariah for the first time openly, her hand in mine, a declaration that shook the room. "This ends now," I said, voice steady despite the pounding in my chest. "I won't hide anymore. I'm marrying Mariah. And if that costs me the inheritance, so be it." Gasps echoed. Linda rose, face twisted in fury. "You'll lose everything. The will allows us to redirect funds to more suitable heirs." Cousins nodded, the prejudice thick as smoke. Then Isla stepped forward, her voice cutting through the chaos. "No. Dad's true intent was to protect Harper's happiness, not enforce outdated rules." She laid out documents she'd prepared, proving the clauses were meant to shield against board interference, not punish me. "I've been rerouting assets to secure Harper's share regardless of who she loves." The room erupted. Linda turned on Isla. "You've betrayed us all for this?" Isla met her gaze. "I betrayed the hate, not the family. Harper's love is worth more than any fortune." The confrontation exploded into accusations and tears. A cousin leaked the meeting to the press outside, turning it into a scandal. Betrayals piled up as relatives disowned us on the spot. Mariah squeezed my hand, her presence the only steady thing amid the storm. I watched Isla sacrifice her own standing, Linda cutting her off completely and the board stripping her advisory role. The price she paid was immediate and brutal, her mother disowning her in front of everyone. Yet she stood tall. "I did this because Dad trusted me to do right by you," she told me later in a quiet corner. My inner world shattered and rebuilt in that moment. I'd accused her of theft while she fought my battles in secret. The moral awakening hit hard. My suspicion had nearly cost me everything, but her support saved what mattered. Lawyers argued late into the night, but the damage was done. We lost some properties to Linda's faction, but Isla's maneuvers kept the core assets intact for me. The family split permanently, some siding with love, most with tradition. Mariah and I left the mansion hand in hand, the weight of decisions and their costs settling like a new reality. The drama had peaked, leaving scars but also clarity. Isla joined us outside, her eyes reflecting the same exhaustion and resolve. "We made it," she said simply. "The price we'd all paid was high, but the truth had won." Weeks blurred into a new normal after the summit fallout. The Chicago mansion stood half empty, Linda and her allies gone, their departure a final severance of ties that once defined me. Isla moved into a modest apartment downtown, her life upended by the choices she'd made to stand with me. I visited her often, the conversations now honest in ways they'd never been. "I never wanted the money for myself," she confessed one evening over coffee. "Dad saw how the family would react to your truth. He gave me the tools to fight them." Her words healed old wounds, but they also underscored the sacrifices. She'd lost her mother, her role in the company, and the security of the only family she'd known since childhood. Mariah and I planned our wedding in a small park ceremony, simple and real, surrounded by the few friends who hadn't turned away. The inheritance battle dragged on in court, but Isla's evidence tipped the scales enough to secure our future home and part of the business. The cost remained. Lost relatives, public scrutiny, and the constant ache of what family used to mean. I wrestled daily with the moral tangle. Had I been right to push so hard, or had my secrecy invited the very chaos that tore us apart? Mariah's calm strength grounded me. "We chose each other," she reminded me. "That's the win." The final court hearing brought closure. The judge ruled in our favor on key points, thanks to Isla's documented protections. Linda stormed out without a word. The last bridge burned. Outside the courthouse, Isla hugged me tightly. "You were worth every risk," she said. Tears flowed freely as the three of us walked into the sunlight. The weight of betrayal and awakening settling into something like peace. The drama had tested us all, revealing prejudices, forcing decisions, and exacting prices none of us could have predicted. I had my wife, my share of the legacy, and a stepsister who'd proven herself the truest ally. But the scars lingered, reminders that love and family don't always align without cost. As we drove away, the city stretching out ahead, I glanced at Isla in the rearview mirror. Her support had changed everything, turning suspicion into unbreakable bond. Yet the question remains. Was Isla's decision to stand by me a genuine act of sisterly love that transcended blood and prejudice? Or was it the ultimate calculated move to reshape the family fortune in her image? You decide.